pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was a speedy one. Thank you all for coming. Roll call. Hartwell? Here. Adel? Here. Daniel? Here. Durbin? Here. Eaton? Here. Steve? Ronnie? Yes. Roll call. Warrants payable.
I move to approve warrants payable in the amount of $886,904.17.
Second. Any discussion? The new library announcement in there. Sorry.
That's great.
Yeah. I know.
Need some more?
And there was our first payment for the stormwater. That project that's happening, and that was over $500,000. That was the majority of it.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Adel? Yes. Daniel? Yes. Durbin?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes. Next up is mayor's comment. And first thing is an update on the airport.
Mayor, I'd like to move to suspend the rules and consider Resolution 3632, a resolution of the City Council to conditionally delay the disposition of all airport assets and during the time allotted for the airport update, since it's relevant to that discussion. It's currently down at the end.
This issue is not up for discussion. I'm just going to give an update, and I'd like to cover that during the land use and planning section, if that would be okay with you.
Would anybody second? I'll second. And do we need to take a vote?
Any discussion?
So we're just moving to move this discussion of airport assets up to now versus later on. So
Right.
it's under.
Since it's relevant to the airport update.
Can we get the airport update first and then?
Sure.
Talk about the
I was
resolution.
just saying, just have it, together, because it seems like that would keep the continuity going.
We do have people who are making presentations, both public comment and we have a guest here for the master plan. So please keep that in mind. Is there any further discussion? Roll call. Adam?
No. Daniel?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Eaton?
Because I just don't really know why it matters. Where we discuss it. No.
Ronnie?
Yes. So anyway, the airport update. In your package, there are several things. The budget that the city's been provided for the last 3 years, a draft of some proposed bylaws, and a draft of a resolution for the city to operate the airport. These are only drafts. If you have read them, there's a lot of mistakes in them because they're drafts. But in all fairness, we want you to be cognizant of the work that's being done and the proposals that are being made, so that if you have comments, you can participate in that. We're also accepting letters of interest to serve on the City Airport Board. If you need any more information on that, call City Hall. This is a belt and suspenders approach, so that if it does happen that an agreement is not reached by the time the 90 days is up, then we can move forward so that we don't have any glitches in operation of the airport. This is an issue that is going to continue on. We make new agreements all the time. We change things, as time goes on. It's not a commitment to do anything. It's just an approach to be prepared for whatever is suitable. And ultimately, all of it will be decided on by council. So, but that's why it's in your packet, if you were wondering. And if you're reading it and saying, well, this is not really well done, that's because I wrote it and I made some mistakes. So stay tuned, and thank you for coming, and please participate as much as you'd like. Next up is the And Councilperson Durbin has also drafted a resolution, and I believe that's what she is wishing to discuss. And we will cover that later on with a full discussion from council. And we'll have time for public comment after mayor's comments are finished. Next up is an observatory update. I don't know if you've heard, there's some things that are happening. I think everybody's heard the helicopters that have been flying around, and the bulk of them, to the best of my knowledge, is for the new power pole. They're going to be taller than the old one. And maybe they will have lights, but we're trying to make them, we're trying to deal with issues with the airport. We're trying to deal with issues of the observatory. And ideally, all those things would fit together well. We're in control of some of them. We're not in control of all of them. Necessity, we need power. There's all sorts of components that are part of this equation. So, but I did have a call from Lisa Perry at Northwest Energy, and she told me that they are putting a pause on the replacement of the light pole project to see if they can come up with a better answer, because they too value the dark skies that so many in our community have emphasized an appreciation of. So that's the status of that. And if you have any more questions, I can't say that we have any more answers here, because I think they're looking at that internally with Northwest Energy. But we'll see what comes of it. They just, she just let me know today, and she met Courtney and I for a meeting yesterday. So, was it yesterday?
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So she called, she put the pause on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Northwest Energy, I don't know
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
which
Because I just saw somewhere that was going to have to be re-engineered, and I just was curious if the city was going to have to help pay for that, since it was our dark skies.
I have not heard anything. I only know that they put a pause on it, and I do not know for how long or what they're looking at. That's all I know.
Okay.
So,
I also have a
yeah.
question, if that's okay. So, setting aside the observatory for a minute and just thinking about this project. So when Lisa came before our council last month, it was, and gave us a presentation, there was no discussion of these poles being more than twice as tall as they were. There was no disclosure that they were going to have lights on them, that they were going to be significantly different. Like, what I recollect was that presentation was they were coming to say, look, these are old. They're going to start to fail if we don't replace them. They need to be replaced, and we're going to replace them. And in my recollection was that the implication was that they were going to be replaced with something extremely similar to what is currently there. And that's just not what is happening. So I guess what I would just want to say is, like, moving forward, I appreciate that they're pausing the project, but I don't think it's just, I mean, I think that the observatory has some good points, but I think aside from that, everyone in the community ought to be concerned about the impact on the view shed that the project would have were it to move forward with the current height, which would be 58 feet per pole versus 28 feet, I think, or 20, whatever it is right now, it's like under 30, and possibly lights and those big round balls. So I think I just wanted to say that I think there's a few things that the community should have been, like, the city should have been privy to, and the community should have had an opportunity to have public comment or input on before that trigger was pulled. And I'm not sure why that presentation didn't have that information. And my understanding is the city didn't have that information either. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Recollect her saying they were going to be quite a bit bigger. They did not say how much bigger, but they were going to be, significantly louder and taller and more. I think they were more alluding to the fact that they were going to be sturdier and stronger, and so that,
And
catastrophic events that were going to fall over.
I want to be careful of the agenda rules. I appreciate your comments. But again, I really don't have any more information to share, but I wanted everybody to know that there is a pause on that issue at this point in time. And if we need to have her back to speak further on the issue for more updates, then we will do that. Okay. All right, and then we have some dates for public participation in the budget. And so, Jen, would you like to go over those dates?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I was gonna pull up a page from our budget presentation last month. So the budget is out now, so you can all see it on the website, on the webpage. This slide will have, yeah. So you can access it that way. It came out today. The expenditures are out now. The revenue side will be out before the end of the week. Yeah, probably tomorrow. And so you have the public will have between now and, you know, the final budget doesn't get approved till August, but between now and July 20th, I will collect all questions or comments or concerns from the public. You can email me. It's jbattlesward1@gmail. And I've just agreed to be a clearinghouse, and I will collect every question. It'll be brought to a public meeting on the 20th here at City Hall at 5:30. And then we've invited all of the department heads to participate as well, so that if there's a particular detail about part of the general fund that they can answer better, then they'll be available to do that. And the idea is that conversation, that public meeting will be led by the questions that all of you have. And so we'll go over everything. Those questions, if I can get answers before the 20th, then I'll come to the table with those solutions on hand. And if not, we'll keep a running list of what's still left to be addressed. And then the next time the budget will come up that the public will have an opportunity to participate in is the July 25th City Council meeting, which all of you are invited to attend, and then the budget will come in front of all of us before it is sent to the state. So just wanted to let everybody know that is 2 more opportunities for you to participate. And, you know, I guess I would just offer up that we have a complex budget. Even if you're someone who's used to reading spreadsheets and budgets, it's not the easiest thing to understand. So please come with your questions and we'll talk about them. If you have a question, chances are your neighbors do too. So yeah, just wanted to summarize those opportunities.
I just had a question, Jen. I brought it today in the finance committee meeting that I'd like to request that we make provisions to have this taped so the people that aren't able to attend can watch it at a later date. So I hope that that's still going to be the plan.
Yes, and I think we're going to do it the same way we do these meetings. Is we'll just have a GoToMeeting link and it'll be recorded.
Oh, good.
And then people can also participate remotely. So, thanks, Terry.
Thank you. Yep. All right, next up is public comment. So, if you're here present, please, we have these nice public comment rules, suggestion for the planning board, and they're all on there. So, please approach the podium, state your name and address, follow the rules on the sign, and use your 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Hoy. I reside across the street. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the civic process. I come to you as a member of our Parks Board. During our last meeting on, that was last week, one thing that was raised, which was the proposed new lights that will be on some of the power poles that will be adjacent to some of the parks that we have on the city. And on behalf of the Parks Board, we just wanted to ask if it was possible to get more information about where these lights will be, what changes are going to be made that will be have an impact on our parks and be located near our parks, so we can be better informed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
I am B.R. Walker. I'm Executive Director of Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary. I reside at 719 South Broadway in Red Lodge. And I have come with a short but urgent message, and I've left my presentation in a little packet for the council, but I wanted to surface the issues that we're dealing with. First of all, we've come through COVID, fire, and flood, and we are now determined we're going to stay here. So in that, we decided, well, who are we and how are we going to do it? We are the Wild of Wonder. we offer an experience with wildlife that you can't have anywhere else because you can't get that close safely. We offer lifelong habitats for animals that can't be re-released. We use their stories for education purposes to build the community and help people understand their role and responsibility as stewards of nature, of wildlife, of this area. And to top it all off, if we don't have a great story already, we're sitting on top of a city dump. We've turned it into a garden. We've made it home for animals. We want to do even more. We came this year with an aggressive plan to survive. The response from the community has been fabulous. We are a community-based destination that serves as an attraction for Red Lodge, for tourists, but also serves a community that's here, that's vital, that needs activity, that needs interest. We are becoming a better partner with the community. And in doing that, we are partnering with the city to come up with ways that we can move on to some construction plans that we have. Those construction plans have been in development for the past few months, and we have some very renowned contractors working with us to evaluate the property to determine what we can put there. And the key difference in anything that we planned before is that we're planning for longevity. We're planning for it to be quality. We're planning for it to be a gym in Red Lodge. We're planning to hold our spot in Coal Miners Park. We have depended on using city easement for our existence throughout time. There's been a memorandum of agreement. There have been multiple meetings where it's been stated how we could use the land but not own it and so on. Well, as the city grows and as we are determined to stay, we're looking at the storm drain project. We're looking at the recycle center. We're looking at things where the city needs to access and use their own property. That's heartbreaking to us because we enjoy the back door. I'm here to ask the council to consider a resolution that will be forthcoming from conversations with the mayor and city planner to allow us continued access to the back of the sanctuary. And by that, I mean that we need an access road, an access gate. And while we're doing construction, we need to have construction access. So we will be getting more information to you. They have a packet and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. I always know how you walk away from the podium as you're speaking. But thank you. Who else would like to speak on any issue? Teresa, and we'll also have a period of time to speak during the public hearing for short-term rental. So, you'll give them in now, you'll give them in. Teresa?
Hi, it's Teresa Whistler, South Broadway, Red Lodge. I just want to say, I really appreciate the mayor, Courtney, and Northwest Energy in the discussions that they've had and efforts they've made, especially internally at Northwest Energy, to escalate the concerns of our community. And like BR, the observatory plans to be a community gem once we get there, and we plan to stay there. And, you know, likewise, you know, we're happy to be a part of the community and have something to contribute. So just thank you. Thanks for the effort.
Thank you, Teresa. Anybody else want to speak? Plenty of time. Sandy.
Hi. Sandy Conley, 307 Hagen Avenue South. Streets. While I appreciate the city paving the alley between 10th and 11th on the backside of businesses on Broadway, it would be nice if the city would fill the actual breaking holes all over this town, even if it's temporary fix pending the completion of the stormwater project. So that's one. The interlocal agreement. I've never heard of this tax increment financing district, and I just would like some more information on that because it sounds like a raise in taxes. to support this interlocal agreement. And I know that it hasn't been discussed, but it was in the paperwork. Airport issue. The mayor destroyed the relationship between the city and the county with her termination without the city council discussion or approval prior to the letter being sent of the interlocal agreement. Now the mayor complains that they won't discuss a new agreement with her. The city council are the only ones who can enter into an agreement anyway. According to that termination, the city has 32 days left before taking over airport operations. There is no operating budget at this time. I didn't see one in the budget that was prepared for the next year. And the city just took on more expense and more staff to operate the recycling
I
center.
don't have to tell you what you did to get on.
Let's listen, then we'll, yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to move forward taking over airport operations until the city council has all the information. I don't understand what the rush is.
Thank you, Susie. Who else would like to speak? Anybody online? Would anybody online like to speak on any issue? Public comment? All right, last call for anybody who'd like to have a public comment on any issue to do with the city. All right, thank you. Next up is standing committees, and the first thing we have is a presentation from Cody Markser with Great West Engineering on the downtown master plan presentation. Courtney, would you like to add any further introduction?
Cody. Cody's been really great with helping to coordinate getting this started and working with the Department of Commerce, and she has a lot of closer relationships with the Commerce and other communities too that, have gone through a similar process. And so I'm really excited to work with Great West. I think this will be a really fun thing for us to do in their community.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I apologize, I have terrible seasonal allergies, so the coughing is not sickness, it's hay season, so. Thank you, and I appreciate your time tonight. I'm Cody Markser with Great West Engineering. I've been assisting the city on the planning side of things with a variety of tasks over the last year and have made Red Lodge my second home, which I wish it was my first home, but here I am. So we'll switch gears into something a little more positive. This is all happy things. Our downtown revitalization plan and growth policy update for 2023-2024. Thank you. So Red Lodge is a Montana Main Street community, which is a portion of the larger Main Street America project. This is a project that looks at how to take a Main Street corridor or a district and improve it, revitalize it, enhance it. It doesn't mean it has to be busy and crazy and populated. It just means what's the best way to revitalize this district for our community. There's some different factors that they look at as part of this project, including economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. Red Lodge signed on to be a part of this program in 2016. And part of that is developing a master plan, if you will, for your downtown, more of a vision of where you are right now and where you want to go in the future. Go ahead, Lonnie. Thank you. So we refer to this as a DTRP. So if there's, I just didn't want to type it out. So I'll just admit to that right now. So this downtown plan is really a strategy that aims to improve the economic, physical, and social aspects of a downtown area. Local governments implement this, primarily municipalities, unless it's an unincorporated city. And really, we're just looking at ways to create a more vibrant and thriving economy in your downtown. So again, there's some 4 key points on what the Main Street America program gears the Montana Main Street program to focus on. We don't need to reiterate those, but the design, promotion, organization, and economic vitality. Thank you, Juan. So a growth policy, there's a million planning documents out there. I should have included a slide that broke down all of these and how they work together, because a lot of times I come into communities and we talk about this plan and that plan, and pretty soon another plan is up for bid, and you're like, why are we doing all these plans? And then nothing happens. So some of these are mandated by state law, some are opted in, some are not mandated or put in place by statute, but they're required for funding to do other projects. So your growth policy is one of those planning documents that is required by Montana state statute. This document is truly misunderstood. It's not just focused on your main street. It's focused on your entire community, but it operates the same way. It's a vision for your community for the next 5 years. Montana state law requires that you update this every 5 years. There's statute that has all the requirements of what has to be included. If you go after state funding through the Department of Commerce, you have to have this document in place and updated. It operates a little bit differently from a downtown plan in the sense that it looks at the whole community, looks at how you're going to work with other partners in your community, including your county government, and to enhance your own city limits, everything within city limits. This document, though, is not a regulatory document. So a lot of people like to lean on it and point to it when things don't go the way they want them to. It doesn't work that way. It's merely the foundation of the house you're going to build all your other rules and regulations and visions and ideas on. So this one has to be there first, but you can't use it to actually say yes or no on anything. All right, Lonnie. This just reiterates your state statute. I expect everyone to be able to read that. Because it's super easy to read. I am required to share it, so if anyone wants to read it in person, you can. But things that your growth policy is going to look at, we're going to evaluate your economics, your finances, we're going to look at your population, your demographics, how things have changed, what are the projections, where are they going, what's your housing look like right now? Of course, we all know we need housing, right? Same old story. But we're also going to have things in there that are going to seem a little weird, like sand and gravel resources. I'm going to be honest, I don't know where Montana State came up with that, but apparently it's very important to know where that is. We're going to look at your subdivision regulations, your zoning regulations, and put all those pieces together and discuss how they work together to get you where you need to be, where you want to be. Thank you, Lonnie. So why update these two documents? The first plan, Courtney is a visionary, so she likes to always be looking ahead in that long-range planning. And your downtown master plan is a bit out of date. Yes, they're, oh, perfect. The folks on the wall can help you see the graphics are a little bit old. So the last time that your downtown plan was updated, I believe, was in 86. So we're a little behind, that's okay. Lots has happened. Your growth policy you did update in 2020. There's just some pieces that aren't necessarily up to par right now with a lot of legislative changes that have happened. So Courtney and I thought, what a great opportunity, and Commerce totally jumped at this. We applied for a grant to just update the downtown plan. Commerce came back and said, why don't you do both in one fell swoop? So 2 birds with 1 stone, and you've got 2 documents that work together and are ready to go to build the rest. So next slide, please. So as far as creating a vision for Red Lodge, so this is really just kind of my intro to stir some, hopefully, some excitement and generate some engagement. I don't know, you guys are always pretty engaged, so hopefully we'll have that be the case in this process too. But we want to look at, on both documents, we want to bring stakeholders, meaning anybody that wants to be involved, to the table that are looking at something comprehensive. We all have our own agendas, which is super important, but we also need to be able to work those agendas together to have a more comprehensive idea of where we're going. We want to look at incremental ways to implement these plans. They will have actual action plans with them, goals and objectives and timelines and who's going to do what and when. So we want to have really good, clear ideas on how to move forward and get these plans implemented. Self-help, how can we all best work together and not put all of our efforts into one basket and leave another one empty? So a lot of times there's either zero engagement or there's too much, and then either way, things don't move forward. So how do we best focus our efforts to keep this rolling? Public and private partnerships, obviously, gonna involve residents, landowners, government officials, Chamber of Commerce, any other groups or organizations that have an investment in the community itself. And looking at what you have as existing assets right now, where you're at, just a status inventory. What type of quality are you looking for in your vision? How much do you want to change? I hail from the Virginia City area, just did their growth policy, which if you know Virginia City would seem odd because literally it's on their signs, resisting change since 1842. So they don't want to grow. So, and that's okay too. There's ways to still move forward with your vision. It doesn't mean you have to boom. And then also you want this to be action oriented. So keeping in mind, what are the things we want to see happen in the community? What's going to show our residents that we are working towards something bigger, actionable, actual objectives that show that something's being done. All right, Lonnie. There are some specific considerations for Red Lodge. Obviously, we have zoning, we have floodplains, we have those interlocal dialogues and relationships. We have personal agendas. We have the highway that runs right down the middle, which is, there's some jurisdictional issues as far as what you can and can't do on your main street. There's regulations that probably need some updating. There's ordinances, there's the floodplain, stormwater design. There's so many things happening here, which is so exciting. But there's a lot of factors to consider as you look forward and look ahead. Next slide, Lonnie. So as far as the timeline, we're looking at kicking this off July and August. My hope is to have a group or a list or anybody that wants to be part of this project gathered up and moving forward with a direction by August. Get a survey out to the public, work on that survey together. Let's get some community engagement and feedback because that's a requirement for both. It's all based on what the community wants. And then September, October, we want to continue that engagement, get a draft plan on both ends, both the downtown plan and the growth policy together. November, December, continue those draft plans, look at public review and comment, tweak them to fit what you need, and then adoption by December, January, maybe even into February if that's how it goes. So pretty quick turnaround. Next, thanks. Stakeholder engagement. So stakeholders are anybody that has an investment in Red Lodge, whether it's financial, personal. I like to visit here on weekends. I live here. My son lives here. Any type of investment on any level. We want to pull all the stakeholders together and organize into work groups that have specific focuses, and they can be things that everyone's interested in. I mean, I'll do the ugly stuff. And then we want to pull everyone together, focus on maybe historic or history and research, inventory. Inventory analysis would be the same thing. Visions and goals, outreach, and then community design. So what do you want it to look like more as far as landscaping and colors and all of those things. Next slide. So some of the community outreach we'll expect as part of these projects is a survey, which online, hard copy, we can do it a million different ways, and we should do multiple ways. An open house, most likely, some type of town hall discussion where we can generate some communication, website, social media, newspaper ads, text notifications, or any other ideas. So these are all things we'll be asking as we move forward with folks that want to be involved. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our next step, like I said, I'd like to pull together some folks that are interested. I'll be reaching out, Courtney will be reaching out in the next month or this summer. I know everyone's busy, but it's also a great time because everyone's busy and excited. We'll review both current documents and see what we like, what we don't like, where we want to go, what's missing, what needs added. And then we'll schedule a work session for maybe August, September to get things rolling. So that was a quick spiel. Any questions? Yes.
I have a question, it's more directed at Courtney. It looks like it's gonna be kind of a tight timeline just to get your first core group of volunteers on board. So what is your plan to do that in a way that it, you ensure everybody's aware and you get the right mix of skills for that group?
Of getting volunteers
Mhm.
together. Well,
For this first, it looks like you're trying to, that's your first step, right, is to get your core group?
yeah.
So what's kind of the plan, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, we'll reach out directly to people we think definitely need to be engaged, like the Historic Society, you know, reach out through the Red Lodge Business Alliance and just those groups that we already work with to see if there are people that are engaged. But I mean, a lot of this really is, I'm taking the leadership from Great West to have them kind of like keep it moving forward and keep it, because, you know, I get bogged down with other things. So, we'll just be working together, get some information out there, and they will be kind of quick turnarounds, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna have a problem finding people who want to be involved in this project.
Yeah, I don't think you will either. I guess my one or not concern, but I would say one thing I always think about is I'm sure with these groups, there's going to be targeted things you're going to want them to do. And many times that requires specific skill sets.
Yeah.
And we have an extremely talented community here, but I'd like to make sure that we're getting the right people plugged in for these
Yeah.
key spots. And so that's one thing I'd like to, you know, be kept abreast of how we're going to do that.
So council, I would ask you actually, if you do have ideas of specific people that I can reach out to engage, I would greatly appreciate that. That'd be wonderful. Some names and numbers and, you know, whatever works best.
And we'll be getting a copy of the presentation with your contact information. I
Yes,
assume, after this?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, because we did something very similar to this back when we became, entered the Main Street
Yeah.
program back in like 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So, because that document basically did that same thing. It decided like the future of downtown Red Lodge, what we want our streets to look like, the bump outs, the walkability. So is that kind of the same thing?
Kind of, yeah, there's just some missing components. So just trying to make it more comprehensive, looking at the whole picture. It was more of an action plan that linked off of your 1986 plan, which is great. But now we want to fuse them all together and bring them up to today's date and looking forward toward 2030.
So will you use the
Yeah.
2020, I think it was
Absolutely.
2004, 2005?
Yeah.
I can't remember when we joined the Main Street
Yeah,
program.
I'm not a recreate the wheel girl. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, take what you have.
There were some really great ideas. in there that
Exactly. Take what you
been
like, move
implemented.
it forward, pull back what you don't. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Department of Commerce has been asking us to update this plan for at least a decade or more. So they were really excited when we were like, we're doing it, we want to do it. So, because they want us to update that and merge it with our action plan. And it'll be good to just refresh those conversations too, to remind ourselves what we had decided to do back then. And did we do some of them, or some of them, why didn't some of them get done? So I'm excited.
I just didn't want to throw that whole thing
No,
away from
yeah.
20 years ago. I mean, I know it was 20 years ago, but it's still
These things
good
are
idea.
arduous. We don't throw anything away.
Okay.
No, we take everything and just, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions from council? No? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes.
What allocation of the budget is from federal funding? What is your allocation is from state funding?
Yeah, so none federal, it's all through the state.
It's all through the
It's a
state.
planning grant, CDBG.
Okay.
Yeah, through the Montana Main Street program. It's a separate grant line. And then it did require a match.
And secondarily or tertiary, it's not linked to anything federal?
No.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
thank you.
You started to say it did require a match. Can you
Yeah, so the grant itself was 37.5 and the required match on that was 16.
And that was already budgeted for my department for contracting with Great West.
I was on the planning board for the last three of the growth policy.
Yeah.
And each year it took us a year to do it. You're proposing to do it in 6 weeks.
Not 6 weeks. No. Yes, 6, 7 months. Yep. I do it every day. We can do it. Yeah, things, and not to say there's not speed bumps. There can be speed bumps, but it can be accomplished rather quickly.
And will that stand for the next 5 years?
Yep.
or-
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so the state on the growth policies has kind of trimmed them down a little bit through legislation. So they're a little bit, they're not those big giant documents that then you stick on a shelf. They're shorter, they're more condensed, they're very targeted.
So, yeah. Anything else? No? All right,
Thank you
you.
very much, Claudia. Thank you for coming very much.
Yeah, thank you.
For this presentation.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is the interlocal agreement with Carbon County for Black Mountain TID software. Courtney, do you want to introduce that?
Sure. So this is for our urban renewal district. So if it feels like it's a separate thing, it's just because of how long it's been taking us to get to this point with our tax assessments. So the interlocal agreement is because the county will have to purchase this tax increment finance district software module. And it's about $5,400 to add that module, and it's to help them do the tax assessments every year for the tax increment financing districts, which is part of our urban renewal district. And so we can use those TIF funds to pay for the software, but we don't have TIF funds currently. So the county is willing to pay for that cost up front, and then the city, they'll invoice the city and we'll reimburse them for it. So that is the interlocal agreement. Since the last city council meeting, I did send the version with the edits that I had made at the last council meeting to Angela and asked her to share with the commissioners if they had any feedback. I didn't hear anything before the meeting today regarding the paragraph that we removed, but she did have a question about the paragraph, the sentence or two that I added about the termination. And she was concerned that if we terminated for any other reason through Montana code, that we wouldn't notify the county, and that should stay on the city's side to notify the county if the agreement is terminated through like a third system. And I just responded and clarified that the city would still notify the county. I just wanted to put in the agreement that there are other ways that the agreement can be terminated. That's just not the county or the city backing out of the agreement. The TIF district itself can be terminated, and that would then terminate the agreement. So I haven't heard any feedback from that on whether or not then that's okay after I clarified that. But this will go to the commissioners on Thursday for their review as well.
May I have a motion?
I move to approve the interlocal agreement between Carbon County and City of Red Lodge for the Black Mountain TID software maintenance and implementation costs.
All right, any discussion? Any further questions for Courtney?
So Courtney, you said it was gonna go to the county on Thursday, but they have seen this.
I assume so. I had sent it to Angela last week.
Okay.
And she was gonna try to get something back to me before the meeting tonight, but I haven't seen it yet, so she may not have been able to get an answer from them. But if they have concerns, we might be bringing this back. We're just kind of, they need to get the module in place to be able to do this. We can always amend the agreement too, in place if we go back and amend it if needed.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Battle? Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Durbin?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is a public hearing for ordinance number 963 to regulate short-term rentals within the city limits. Jen, give a little introduction about that.
Sure, I would like-
Yes.
Another little introduction, ordinance 963, regulating short-term rentals within city limits. So we have seen this a few times. Love to get the public hearing going. There is, though, basically the last edit that we made clarified section 6 and then also removed one of the whereases, and then finally updated section 5. However, I was responsible for updating section 5 with the proper formula, and only half of it is here, so that's probably on me. But the edit to section 5 is that we are increasing, we're increasing from 50% to 100%, so that 1.5 should read 2.0. Which it got edited halfway, like 50% of the way. So I just want to be clear that what we agreed to was that originally the Section 5 had recommended that the total overall threshold for short-term rentals within city limits would be 15%, and we edited that, we amended that last time to 20%. And that should be fully reflected in Section 5. But those were the edits. And we can talk about, we can go for the public hearing.
Wonderful. Public hearing is now open. If anybody would like to make a comment on this issue, please approach the podium, state your name, follow the rules on the public comment board on the wall, and speak what you have.
Chris Mulaney, 406 North Hagen. I have, and I own that residence. I live here, I volunteer here, I shop here, I donate here, and I shop at the IGA and the drugstore, which I think are two important businesses in town. I want to thank the short-term committee who worked on this for a whole year, and I think they came up with some really good ideas. Nobody's trying to stop short-term rentals, but I have an investment, and my investment should be as important as the guy across the street who lives in California. I just want to be able to know who owns it, know who to call, somebody to call Saturday night at 10 o'clock when there's an issue. And I think that this ordinance, as it's written, is a really good start on controlling the growth of the short-term rentals. Our town can't survive if it's just short-term rentals. We have to have a whole entire community. I live in town, not in some place that has an HOA, because I wanted to be part of the town. So I really hope that you as council members think about the rest of the people. We've certainly heard from the management companies and the realtors and on. But we have a whole bunch of people here who, this is our neighborhood. And this ordinance is really little. I've read about areas that are doing much, much more. It's a good start, and I hope you pass it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a public comment on this issue? Sandy.
Sandy Conley, 307 Hagen Avenue South. The planning board did do quite a bit of changes to the short-term rental, requiring a response quickly. Anywhere, all you have to do is check with the city. They'll give you who it is that is responsible for that problem, that house, if you have a problem. I sat through the committee meeting with that formula, and we discussed it on the planning board for that formula. And I don't know why we don't make it simple and say 20% of dwelling units is where the cap is. Instead of using a formula, just say 20% of the housing units. So I think that formula should be thrown out and simplified so anybody can read that without the A, B, C, D and divide and all of that. 20% of available housing, make it easy. The other thing that I still don't like is classifying the ownership of a short-term rental to say you're not going to be subject to the threshold and you are going to get less of the permits for short-term rentals. I just think that that's a really bad idea. And you're saying that a property management firm or a skilled or a licensed property manager would get the more percentage of the permits. And that is, the question really is why? If in fact in zoning, it says that there has to be somebody within a short time period that can respond to any issues, why would someone who owns a short-term rental, which I don't, have to spend 30 to 40% of your gross to hire a management company if you are already there? Let's say that you own the house next door and you turn it into a short-term rental. and you're not exempt, and you're not a professional management company, why would you get less of the percentage of the available permits? That doesn't make any sense, and I just think the city's gonna get sued in the short run by those people that don't wanna spend 30 to 40% of their gross on a property management company when they can do it themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else want to make a comment on this issue? Please approach the podium. Follow the rules.
Make it really quick this time. Chelsea Tubin, 803 North Hauser. Obviously, I've spoken at pretty much as many meetings as possible, so I've missed a few. That being said, I just do think that we could work on this a little bit to clean up the language and protect from lawsuits, protect from classifications, protect from weird formulas that people don't understand. I attempted very hard to make it to land use and planning, but I was at a property cleanup, so I was not able to make it there today. But I do think it would be worth maybe inviting a few of the stakeholders and not just people like myself, not a realtor and not a property manager, but also other people of this community as well, homeowners, et cetera. It might be worth a conversation with a tight-knit, kind of break it all down, write it back out. And honestly, with this coming up, I do think that there's going to be a lot of good information gleaned from that. So maybe that's something that could be beneficial.
Thank you, Chelsea. All right, anybody else want to make a comment? This is your time. Public comment. We'll take a break and go to the online people. Is there anybody online who'd like to make a comment on this issue? Short-term rental? Ordinance? All right, we'll go back to the people who are here. Would anybody else like to make a comment? I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to make a public comment. All right, last call for online, and last call for those present. All right. Public comment is closed. May I have a motion?
I would like to move to amend ordinance number 963 under section 5, the last part of the last sentence to read, emergency services B with an additional 100%, parentheses 100%, added 2.0, and the formula being A divided by B multiplied by 2 equals C, B times C. And I'll just, well, that's my request for an amendment. We'll get to discussion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Right, discussion.
So I'll just clarify that, yes, I understand that we can clarify it to just read 20% of the total, and also this formula was written this way to make sure that everyone understood how all of the pieces were determined. So when you say 20% of total dwelling units, we need to know how it is the total number of dwelling units get determined, right? And so understanding each portion of this equation is important because the city of Red Lodge is going to use the formula above every June to make sure that 20% is still working for our community. And so colloquially, we can say we've come to 20%. And if you look back in the minutes of the short-term rental committee meetings and also land use and planning, you'll see that these numbers were discussed, each one of these numbers was discussed in detail. And so it's important, I think. So for example, we originally landed on 15%. So when someone asks in a year, how did we land on 15% to begin with? We can go back and look at this equation along with the minutes, and you can see how we came up with that. We came up with that because at the time we were at just around 10%. We had seen that the data had shown that around 20% was where communities really started having trouble and having problems that they couldn't pull back from. And then those committees got together and said, okay, well, if we pick a number in the middle, then we're still allowing for growth because the community is not saying we're having problems right now at 10%. So we want to be able to find room to grow. We picked the middle number, And now we've come to 20 because of all 6 of us listening to the community and conversing. And it's important to keep track of how that conversation has developed over time, because we're going to be looking at it every single year and saying, is this still working? And you have to go back to those same components to be able to answer that question through over time. So colloquially, we can say, yes, what we're doing right now is saying we want to set a threshold at 20%, but it's important to have the formula in the ordinance, because that's the formula that's going to be used every year. And then the other thing I would just say regarding talking about the property classification, so section 6, we have had numerous conversations on this, and where we have landed is at a place where the attempt is to protect local businesses in the most legal way we can. And it is possible to become a professional manager that has the Montana classification, or sorry, I'm trying to think of a word.
EIN.
Well, right, we have the EIN in section 1, but basically that you can become classified as a licensure of property managers through the state of Montana. You don't have to necessarily, you can do that as an individual. And so that's why we had type 2 listed as it was, so that the idea being that we would prioritize folks who have those licensures through the state of Montana. And that's where type 2 comes into play. And everything else we've really talked quite a bit about, so.
Just
Yeah.
one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I sent Jen an email on this, but I want to talk about it tonight to get the rest of the council's view on this, since it wasn't done. So for completeness and clarity, I suggested adding references to the recommended amendments by the planning board to section 4.4.20 regarding short-term rental policies. And the reason, one thing that I'm very sensitive to is when we have all these documents that are floating around in planning, we have documents that we have here in the city, we need to make sure they're in sync and they're consistent and they're correct. So it seems to me like instead of having these points that the planning board recommended kind of peppered in this ordinance, it would be better to simply reference that document so that all of the information, if it's updated or changed, it's only done in one place. Because I've seen this happen in other documents, and it's just, I think, good practice to do that.
Terry, I can see your point, but I think I want to clarify. So because I'm on land use, I'm on the planning board also. So planning took the recommendations that came from the SDR committee and said, here's the things that we think should be addressed in zoning. And so that's the zoning document. And everything else, land use and planning and city council, you have to address via ordinance. So they are complementary, but they do not overlap. And so that's why, like, the ordinance is really the admin part of STRs, and then the planning board looked at changes to the zoning document.
Right.
So I guess I don't see a need to, like, they specifically were meant to be like, these will be over here and these will be over here.
Well, I mean, I just look at them, for example, if you look at the definition of what a short-term rental is, the number of consecutive nights, it's defined here for a short-term rental, and it's defined here.
Yeah.
If I go to the second one, it talks about, in fact, it's defined 2 different places within the ordinance. If I look at this, it says 30-minute verbal response, 60-minute on-the-site response is required. That's peppered in here as well. The only one that I saw that wasn't a duplicate of both of these was the last one, and that was grandfather zoning of current operations. And I may have missed it, but I didn't see it in your ordinance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I saw 6 of the things that are in the zoning, 4.4.22, whatever, specific uses. I saw those in here. So that's, to me, where I see an issue with keeping them in sync and consistent, unless they don't need to be.
So are you asking for an added whereas? Like, what are you asking for?
What I'm asking for is instead of having those in there, or just refer to the planning document or whatever, 4.4.22.
Except for
For the
4.4.422, it hasn't been put in front of us yet.
Okay, but I guess what I'm saying is, I would say, I'm not sure what state this is in. This was brought to me by the planning committee. I'm just saying, at whatever time that happens, I want to understand what the mechanism is going to be so that when one thing gets changed, it gets changed across the board in both documents so that they're consistent.
I would maybe more suggest, because Jen looked at me.
Well, I'm guessing that you have, have thoughts on this, given.
I would suggest, because the zoning update amendment will come to the council, and we wanted to try to keep those conversations separate, because they are kind of two separate things. Maybe amending the zoning document at that time to reference this ordinance, so that when I'm reviewing any of those issues, then it's in the screen that, oh yeah, this was the ordinance that also has some.
Yeah, that would be
makes
perfect. Yeah, I'm just saying,
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out, I didn't realize that these hadn't been passed yet.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have an amendment on the table.
Yes.
Can I just jump?
I just recalculated out this, your equation again, and it doesn't work, like, for next year. Because, like, let's say I just did 100 vacation rentals divided by 1,000, keep the math simple. And so that's, 100, it's 0.1 times 2. So that's 0.2. And you take 1,000 times 0.2, you get 200. So we can go up to 200. So let's say next year we have 200 and we still have 1,000 residences. So it's 200 divided by 1,000 and it's 0.2, and then you multiply it by 2. And so then you're going to allow 400 because you're allowing another 20% increase. It doesn't work for next year. It works for this year, but it doesn't work for next year. What do you mean? Like, we worked it out, like, time. Okay, so you're right for the 20% for this year. It ends up being 1,000 times 0.2.
Yeah.
So let's say next year we're at 200 over 1,000. So 200 divided by 1,000 equals 0.2. And you do it times 2, right? Because you're taking A divided by B times 2 equals C. So C is now 0.2, and you're taking B, which is 1,000. I'm making it wrong. I'm like, because you 0.2 times 2 is 0.0 is 0.2.
Would you like to
It's 0.4.
take a recess to figure this out?
I think we need.
you can give me 10 minutes.
Yeah, like calculate it out in the future, I guess.
Let's take a recess then, and
Yes.
we'll 10 minutes do.
Yeah.
We'll take a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 7:15. So,
The intention is to do it every year. The intention is to review it and make after you do a survey. It's not review. Okay, but it says that rental has to be you're gonna be calculating. Okay, so it needs to say review. Okay, it's not recalculated. It's not like we do the math every year. The way it's down, it's every year we're gonna review. Everybody gets that.
So I think we should wait and correct it and get a printed copy of it and vote on it next time.
No, I don't want to wait.
no, I'd you guys like to go to an office? And have-
Yeah.
Upstairs. And then I'll let you know.
I'm gonna take my computer. I'm here. Well, I think you're right. I think yeah, we're not, it needs to be a rate shop. Not 1,000% every year. We're saying we're looking at it every year. That does seem good. So what we can do is say, whatever it is, 25 is maybe, whatever. Why? Like, so that is then, let's say it might be 30, it might be whatever our current is that still, do we want more, do we want less?
That's what we say. simple concept.
We're gonna get these meetings there. So let's say next year. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's not like the number is right. The number is changed. No, you have to. I think that's
I should have brought my. You know what, I do have fans from. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
I do, I don't know how long it's like. Oh.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
Yeah. Remember that.
I didn't remember.
I don't know if you had to be or go after.
Well, thank I know.
I know. All right. Okay. Got it? So it's just gonna say, do you realize you're right, so calculated by total number of dwelling units in the city of Red Lodge calculated by disaster emergency services with an additional 20%. The threshold will be reviewed, not calculated. The threshold will be reviewed by the city of Red Lodge staff using the formula of each unit. And we'll. So as your threshold will be calculated and total number of permanent short-term rentals in the Red Lodge will be calculated as determined by disaster with an additional 20%. Threshold will be reviewed by city staff using the formula. Well, you can. She just has 20% of it. That's total number. Where was that? See, what this was doing was giving you, remember, there's just more than last year, which I was like, if I were right, that number of dwelling units in the city of Red Lodge. And then reviewed. Yeah, and then reviewed. Okay. How long is there?
I was what? Oh, I don't know. 10 minutes. I'm not sure how many minutes have passed, but yeah.
Small part out of our EMC dollars.
I got some on you. Seriously, it's over.
Feels like you're. Up to the top of your head. Just right here, like my head, not good. Only last 10 years though.
Only. My mom liked it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know I've heard about it. Oh. Ooh. So I told her, I was like, I just don't have this. She's like, oh,
You don't remember? And I'm like, you know what they say, choose that word. All that is really trace your mother. Yeah. Right. No matter how much I exercise.
I always eat well, or I always dress, or any of that. Door open. So hot. So hot. Oh, moving to, all right, we'll start over. Yeah, what you got? Then I can move the amendment. And we can approve the amendment, then we can vote on the actual application. And now I've got one more vote after. So it's just like one. So Kelly will, I'll move to withdraw my previous amendment. Kelly will move to approve the lower. And I will move to amend section 5. And then we will vote on the amendment, so since that's first. And it's very clearly. And then the second one, yeah, might be withdrawn. Okay. All right. Order. Okay.
Okay, meeting will come back to order. We're back in session. And we will resume where we left off. And so, Jen,
I'm going to move to withdraw my previous amendment.
is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Any further discussion? We don't have to do a roll call on that? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I move to approve ordinance 963, regulate short-term rentals within city limits.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
I would like to move to amend ordinance 963, section 5, to read. The city of Red Lodge hereby establishes a threshold of total STR licenses permitted within city limits, period. The threshold will be calculated as 20% of the total number of dwelling units in the city of Red Lodge, calculated by disaster and emergency services. The threshold will be reviewed by City of Red Lodge staff using the formula above each June annually. In the event that the threshold is reached, a waiting list shall be established to facilitate new permits when existing permits expire and are not renewed. Regulations in this ordinance will be reviewed as set forth by resolution.
And was that second?
I second it.
Okay. And so do we have further discussion on that?
I'll just say, I don't, like I did the last time, I don't feel comfortable with something's changed on the fly. to vote on it. So that's how I'm going to stand on that.
Any further discussion?
So really all we're doing though is changing this to reflect what people were actually wanting and asking for, to do it as 20% of the total dwelling units in Red Lodge. And that number is still the same, calculated still the same by Disaster and Emergency Services. So the only thing that's changing is that we're simplifying it a lot,
Taking out the big equation.
taking out the big equation.
And last
And
time
making
it
it
was
20%.
one whereas. It screwed us up, so I stand where, I'm going to stay where I am.
Any further discussion?
And the other thing that's changing, sorry, is instead of the threshold being calculated by Red Lodge City staff, it's being reviewed. Because that was Jody's point, is that if we calculate it next year, we're essentially saying we're doubling it. And we're okay with doubling it again.
Yeah,
But the
doubling it
point-
every year.
Right, and the point is that we want to review it every year. Red Lodge City staff and City Council to review it every year with input from the public and the community, to see if that's still working.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
I did have one question, and I guess where do we get the number from the Disaster and Emergency Services? Do they give us a report?
They give us.
Okay, so you have that report for this? for
Well, and
this
that
year?
number will improve, yes,
Okay.
and that number will improve over time because they're improving just addressing in town in general. So just that data will improve over time.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call on the amendment.
Battles?
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Durbin?
No.
Eaton?
Yes.
Keith?
Oh, sorry.
Ronnie?
Yes.
On to the motion, the original ordinance. We have a motion and it's been seconded. Any further discussion on that? All right, roll call.
Battles?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Durbin?
No.
Keaton?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is Resolution 3632 to delay the disposition of airport assets. It's up for discussion, and Terry Durbin, would you like to introduce this and
Sure.
start the discussion?
So I have a point of clarification, just so people are aware, on the agenda, it's Resolution 3632, not 3622. And then as a point of information, I'm not sure why, if you could please clarify why this is listed as a discussion and not an action, because at the last council meeting, you agreed that this would be introduced and voted on.
I did not listen to the recording, however,
I have the recording if you would like to hear it.
however, it's my understanding that this wasn't in front of the public, this resolution, and it's proper to have a discussion prior to deciding on a resolution. And I believe Councilperson Battles, because she's on the planning committee, represented the same idea to Lonnie when the agenda was drafted, and everyone concurred that it would be proper to have it as a discussion.
It would have been nice if someone would have talked to me, because like I say, I have this recorded that you said we could do discussion and we could move to an action. I could introduce it and I could play it for you if you'd like. It's pretty clear.
We try to, Dennis, do you want to, the propriety of having it be voted on with no prior public notice?
Mayor, members of the city council, at this point in time, it was listed as a discussion item on the agenda. And so it would not be appropriate to do any action on this at this time because it was listed and the public notice went out as a discussion item only.
Thank you. So, would you like to introduce the resolution that you drafted?
Yeah. So I have drafted this under the guide of Dennison to address this issue of the airport. So this is a resolution of the City Council to conditionally delay the disposition of all airport assets. And the disposition of assets, what this is basically doing is keeping everything on stay until October 13th. We're still going to require the county to get us all the information that we need to make a good decision. That they will be giving us that information by August 13th. The airport board and the council, the commissioners agreed to that. And so this would just give us a time, have the city council, who is the legislative branch of our city, to meet once we have all of the information and the data and come up with what we think would be the best solution for the city to move forward.
Any further discussion on this issue? Would you like to do a round robin, or how would you like to?
Well, is there a motion
Whatever.
to approve it?
So
It's not up for action, so we can't.
Okay. We had, so I should start by saying that at the Land Use and Planning Committee today, we did not have a agenda posted in our packet. So, and that was completely my fault. I did not get the agenda out in a timely manner to the other committee members, and they did not have an opportunity to respond back and approve the agenda. So today, when we had this meeting earlier today, Jen and I were here, Chris was online, and then also Cinta and Terry were in attendance, and there was a lot of discussion, and that is not actually allowed because it wasn't publicly noticed properly. So my fault, I take responsibility for that, and we're going to try to recreate everything that we talked about there so that it is in the public sphere so that people can hear what we talked about. So I commented at the meeting talking about, I wasn't sure what the October 13th deadline was about, and asked if it was an internal one for the council to have a deadline that we would make a decision, or that we would on what should happen with the airport. And Terry confirmed that. Another thing that came up that I really think we need to discuss is Brian Hanna brought the 2018 agreement, and I guess I'll back up and say I totally agree that we should have all of the information in front of us, and so that we can make an informed decision about what happens with this important asset in our community, and that I know we all want to keep open and keep operating. I don't think there's any dissent among the council on that. So Brian Hanna brought forth the 2018 agreement that stated in the disposition of assets category. And so it is number 10 on page 3. He brought this up as a, is this resolution necessary? Because there might already be a provision in this agreement that covers what I believe that we're trying to do with this resolution. So it says in this section, disposition of property upon termination, if no agreement as to disposition is reached within 3 months after termination of this agreement, the existing joint board shall constitute an advisory board on disposition of the airport property. So to me, that says that at this deadline of the 90 days, of August 13th, that at that time, this would go into place, that the existing joint board shall be an advisory board on the disposition of the airport property.
Time for how long to be an advisory board?
Mm-mm.
Until.
The board shall, as soon as possible, prepare and recommend to the cities and counties a complete plan for the disposition of all tangible property acquired under this agreement, and such plan shall provide for the continuation of the use of the real property as a public airport if practicable.
So I would just like to comment that, I mean, that may be in there, but to me, this resolution is kind of putting a pause on it, and it's going to allow city council to present, to talk, discuss in a public forum, hopefully, possibly even with a special city council meeting after we have all of the information on October 13th, to work, to go over the interlocal agreement, make changes, present it to the county, present the map to the county, so that it'll, otherwise we're just going to continue down this road of saying it's terminated and we're moving forward with creating our own city airport board and creating our own city management of the airport. To me, this puts a big pause on that. So council will have time to act and move forward.
And I just wanted to say too, the other thing that was added in here was the thing about making sure that we would get, I guess there had been something with the list of assets, when it would be ready, and the city does not have it now, but this gave a deadline of August 13th, just to ensure that we would have, you know, the information that we needed to have these discussions, so. And I would say, if you have any question, too, maybe Dennison Council could talk, because we did discuss this, and he had some ideas on this.
I'd love to hear from you, Jensen, on this.
Mayor, members of City Council, I knew I should have left earlier. Any questions? What, seriously, any questions you guys have?
Yeah, so I
Or
guess,
we can just start talking to.
go ahead, Jen. Oh, were you gonna? Sorry.
I was just gonna ask, do you feel like an added resolution is necessary given what the interlocal agreement currently states about termination and dissolution?
That was a very interesting question. I will say there's at least 7 different plans on how to tackle this issue. And legally, none of them are wrong. Well, I'm sure somebody could come up with a plan that's illegal, but I'm sure there's 7 different ways. In the interlocal agreement itself, it has a specific provision on how the disposition of the assets, what happens after the termination is made, how things are going to be disposed of. And that's already set. Any type of resolution should not just duplicate what's already there. A resolution should necessarily change or amend what's already in place. We already know what's in place. What's going to be in place is that the board is in existence during this 90-day period until and such time that the city can take over and manage the airport. That says it in that interlocal agreement that the board will stay in a position until such time, and to the extent necessary, I think that's the exact words, extent necessary, until the city can take it over. After 90 days, they become over just an advisory board. I mean, during this time, they're working on disposition of the assets. And after the 90-day period, they're just an advisory concerning the disposition of the assets. There's no longer a board in place. So it's a very simple, straightforward process. So this resolution, any type of resolution, should amend or change something fundamentally to pass it. It shouldn't just be a duplicate of what's already in effect and agreed. Another thing to keep into consideration is this resolution that, or if the city doesn't want to do a resolution, but if the city wanted to do a resolution, it's not a unilateral reaction. The resolution the city does do would be a proposal to the county concerning the disposition, if that makes sense. The city cannot say, we are going to extend this. The county has to agree to it also. So a resolution would necessarily more of an offer saying we are agreeing to this. We would also have to talk to the county, because the city could pass a resolution that says we want to stay termination of this agreement until 2025, and the county could say no, it's already terminated, and the county has already agreed it's terminated, and they could just say no, we're going forward with termination. So there's those two things in play. Whether this agreement should say it stays the termination, that's already been done. Whether it stays, which is, that has legal ramifications. Whether this is saying it stays the disposition of the assets, which also has different legal ramifications. Whether it says, we're gonna, one thing that this did say was that saying the disposition of the assets, so the actual dissolution of the actual assets, I think was to give everybody more time instead of having to force and try to quickly prepare a dissolution of the assets. It would just give, the idea was to give everybody more time so that they don't are in a rush on the dissolution of the assets. It does not say that it's going to stay the termination, which has already been ratified, well, which has already been agreed to by the county that it happened. Another thing this one does say, once again, it doesn't have to, the council acts by 4 members, but it says that it will agree that the airport board, and one of the provisions, I don't remember which one, that is in place now will continue to operate with authority, which is different than what is in the interlocal agreement disposition. And once again, that could be good or that could be bad. It's not illegal. So it's not a legal question of what should be done. I know right now the city's already been advertising for city airport board members, and the city's moving forward to have a working board in effect. The 90 days where it came from was the 90 days from the termination. That's where the August 13th deadline kind of came out. So that if this is passed, it could be amended or passed, but if it's passed, it allows the airport board that's already in place now to continue to operate. And that's different than what's in the interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement termination says that after 90 days, August 13th, the airport board that's currently there is only an advisory board, and they're no advisory board concerned the disposition of the assets. They're no longer in charge of running the airport at all. And so that's another change. Once again, which one's better, which one's worse, that's a legislative decision. That's, you get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I just tell you what's legal and what's not legal. And really, whether to stay the termination, whether to stay the disposition of the assets, whether to stay or maintain the board's authority while you get here in the South, or whether to allow this interlocal agreement to just take effect, and then the board loses authority on August 13th, and the new board, if the city comes in. I mean, those are all legal options.
So we can stay the termination, because if we stay the termination, does it reset the clock? How does that work?
That's a great question. The termination was in effect, and
We're not going to do it on that.
yeah, but, and the city and the county agreed it was properly terminated. Terminations usually happen, it's terminated, and then you move on from there. So the city council could vote to just stay that, and then, yes, it would reset all the timelines and all the everything. It would go back to the original. And once again, I'm not saying it's a good idea or bad idea, but it would go back to the interlocal agreement that is in place would continue in effect. There's an interesting question that probably shouldn't bring it up, but just an interesting question that I'm going to. Whether the county would have to recognize the stay of termination or not. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Denison,
Sorry,
I'm concerned about the gray area. I'd like things to be as clear as possible so we know who's in charge. And I think it's always great to have a good agreement that everybody agrees on, but right now we don't have that. And I'm concerned about the existence of this gray area. Does that put us at risk legally?
The resolution that's currently on the table is just staying the disposition of the assets. What that does, it doesn't, I wouldn't say it creates gray area, because we already know, if nothing is done, we already know what's going to happen with everything. We already know the timeline, it's already written in the interlocal agreement, we already know what's going to happen, or we should. If the city had an ability to take over management of the airport right now, today. In the interlocal agreement, the board only has authority to the extent necessary. I don't think the city has that ability, because we don't even have a board yet. We're still, we're rooting for one. But if the city did, the city could take over management of the airport. But if the city doesn't, on the 90 days from the termination, which is around August 13th, is when the board that's currently in place running the airport becomes an advisory board. That's black and white. And then an advisory board doesn't have the authority to actually run an airport. There needs to be something in place, I would hope. I think everybody hopes that there's some plan in place by that time frame that could take over the smooth transition. I think that's why their city is looking for an airport board right now, airport board members. But I know that's one thing that Terry specifically was concerned about and pointed out, that there needs to be this transition of who has authority during this transition time. And I think that's one of the reasons why she added this in this resolution, so that it would give the authority to at least the city is offering to the airport board that's currently in place. You have the authority to continue working and continue to operate the airport while we figure this out for this till October. City council doesn't have to agree to that, but that would be if the city agrees, or if the city council, acting through 4 city council members, approve this resolution. That would be a difference or amendment to what's currently in place, the rules that are in place based on interlocal agreement.
And do you have any idea how long it should take to get I mean, we haven't received anything from the county as far as the disposition of assets. Do you have any idea how long that should take? Because I just want to make progress with this issue, and I haven't seen any. And I think that it's not productive is a frustration. So, how long do you think this process should take? Do you have, or is that a fair question?
That's a totally fair question. Not a legal question, so I just give out 2 cents off the top of my head. Disposition of the assets, what you usually do is you have a list of your assets that you always have. Most people know what assets they have. A lot of times there's a couple things you don't know. And I'm talking about governmental entities get audited every year. You know what assets you should have. And then your disposition, usually you would have a list of assets and their market value or their book value. And then you kind of work through those assets. I know, in speaking with Angela, they've put together a lot of those. At the last meeting, they promised that they will give us a list by August 13th, the very list. I know, in speaking with other individuals, they've been working on that list. I know, I'm assuming the list will include, we can talk about that when we get it. Yeah.
Did anybody else have questions for Denison? Thank you.
And I just wanted to make another comment. You know, I was at the airport, the last airport meeting, and I told them about this resolution I was going to present, and they seemed very engaged and glad to see that this was coming, that we would, again, do a reset, have all of the information, and the city council, as the legislative branch of this government, would work to see what we think after we look at everything, what's in the best interest of the city and our community. So,
Terry, I have a question for you, because
Yeah.
you used some language that I'm not clear on what, you said a reset. So, but when we heard earlier about if we're staying the termination, that would be a reset of all the dates and the calendars and everything. You're not talking about that.
all I'm talking about, yeah.
I just want to be clear. So
Yeah,
you
no, I get
used
it.
some language that I just heard over here that was different.
Okay,
So
all
I'm
I'm
just trying to
saying is,
understand.
in plain English, I think this is an opportunity. There's a lot of these things that happen, disillusion and other things happen not within the purview of the city council. I think this is a good opportunity for the city council, since anything that happens has to be signed off for us, to give us an opportunity as a city council, which we haven't done to date, to look at all the information and actually have a conversation and talk about and debate what we think is the best move forward. because we're ultimately going to have to vote on this. And I think if we all have the information and we have these candid conversations, that we can come up with something that works best, not only for Red Lodge, but for the community. And that is the whole reason by having the stay. And I think we can get that done relatively quickly once all the pieces, the puzzle pieces are there and all the data's there for us to look at. And that's why I was saying earlier, I was just offering, I know that there's a lot of information that's going to be there. I'd be glad to go through and organize it so it's easy for us all to see. And that's what the offer I made earlier today, so that it would be, you know, everybody wouldn't have to go through that same learning curve if there's a stack of papers to sort it out. And then we can sit down and get this done. Because the one thing I would like to avoid, I know it's been brought up, well, let's get, you know, like an infinite stay. I want to avoid analysis paralysis. Because I do feel once we have all the information, we can come to some sort of, you know, agreement on what we think is the best way to move forward as a council.
So another question, what are your thoughts about, so August 13th or, you know, whatever, you know, the 90 days. So I hear Dennison saying, so this will be, if nothing happens, I mean, we're not voting on this tonight, but if we do vote on it and it doesn't pass, then what's laid out in the 2018 agreement right now is that the board would continue to exist, but just an advisory component. So this resolution would give them 2 more months.
Just keep things as it is. Yeah.
For 2 more months.
Yeah, for 2 more months.
So that, to me, it gives council the opportunity to work on an interlocal agreement if the board and the existing board stays in effect. And if we can reach an agreement with the county, then that, you know, then whatever changes are going on will happen. But it gives them that continuity, you know, there's
Right.
the status quo, you know, the same people, they know the projects that they're working on, they know what everything that's going on up there, rather than a whole new airport board coming in, taking over for, you know, 30 days, and then we reach an agreement, then who's the airport board?
Well, that would be outlined in the agreement. I mean, and I'm sorry, I have to say that I'm pretty skeptical at this point of us having an agreement with the county. We've offered them mediation/negotiation 3 times now, and there's been nothing, right?
Like I said earlier, though, I think that, and I'm not speaking on behalf of other council members that have gone, but I think just my perception going to these airport meetings, that they are really willing to work with us. They want to see a new set of eyes on it, the legislative branch, and I think they're very open to working with us. I really do, or listening to us and seeing what we come up with.
Have we seen any responses though in that direction? mean,
I have at the airport board.
We've only gotten correspondence that says no, 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 and coupled with the demand that if the city is going, if there will be no agreement if the entire area between Highway 78 and Remington Ranch Road, that entire area that they do not presently have legal access to is included in that agreement. I mean, I just don't see.
So was that an email?
Just a minute. That was at the last meeting, at the last airport board meeting. And I don't want to, the city assets are very important. We do not have representation on the airport board. We have no elected officials. The people who represent the city land is 4 pilots who all have a vested interest in hangars, and 3 commissioners. We have no city representation on that board. And I don't know, from my perspective, I don't think that's being a good steward of city assets. So I just want you to be very careful with, these extensions. It is a council decision, but I just, if I saw something that would justify that, but this is a thing that was decided by council that joint agreement was agreed on by, probably at least 12 people, not just once, but twice. And all of them agreed that this would be the process. So you are overturning their decisions. And that's, you know, probably, there's 6 council people from each agreement, which was essentially the same, however, the second one added the commissioners. And then, you know, their attorneys, the entire airport board. I mean, there were a lot of eyes on that, and that was the procedure, and that procedure was followed. So you don't want to follow this procedure, and I just want that to be clear when you make these requests. So.
So I just want to say one clarifying thing. Nobody is put, even from Red Lodge, on that airport board without being put up for vote and put on there. So shame on whoever did that, or Red Lodge, for not putting people, if they didn't feel the 2 people on there were serving their own interest. Huh?
We did that,
I know.
council did.
I know we did, and I don't have a problem because those, I mean, I know the people.
There
Yeah.
there are no elected officials.
That was our decision,
No, that is the agreement
That was the
from
agreement from
2018.
that there's no elected official on it.
Correct.
There are only elected county officials, and I would be delighted to come up with a new joint agreement, and there is not any kind of a deadline on that. That possibility exists today, and it will exist at Christmas, and it will exist on the 4th of July. That is always a possibility, but I think it's important to move forward, and we've been doing this for 7 weeks. I think we argued about mediation and whether it was actually terminated for the 6 weeks, and I don't see, I mean, this is our responsibility to responsibly manage city land and resources. So that's all really that I have.
That's good. Okay, thank you. So all I'm going to
Terry,
say is,
I would really prefer if your remarks were kept civil and.
my
not
remarks are
personal.
civil, but
Thank
what I'm trying to express to you is, instead of looking at the glass half full, half empty, let's look at it half full. And while there have been a lot of things going on, it has not been in the purview of many, I don't know of all, of many of the city council people. So all I am saying is go forward. Can we try to do a reset and have enough faith in the city council to let us take a stab at it and see if we can come up with something that works? Because it would be in the benefit of the whole community and the city of Red Lodge. And I think the points you're making are right. We could probably also bring up some changes in the membership to the board. I'm sure that's not off the table. And so just give us a shot at it, is all I'm saying. We are the legislative branch, and we haven't had that opportunity. So that's all I'm trying to fight for.
I have a suggestion that I could do with this resolution. So you know, understanding the importance of any agreement that would come before us that we all would have to vote on in terms of the management of the airport, and recognizing that I personally want time to digest whatever's put in front of us. What if, and I also think we have to acknowledge the fact that, you know, 60 days has already passed and we are still in the same position. And I'm not super excited about the idea of staying this through October, when this is really about getting our act together and we already have a draft interlocal agreement from the city. It needs financials and it needs backup data for us to be able to look at it with any amount of scrutiny. And I don't see any reason why it would take the county to October in order to be able to do the same thing for us. Terry, I totally agree with you. I think the 6 of us need to get together and come up with what's best for the residents. The thing about the August 13th deadline, and the point that Dennison was making, is that like some kind of controlling body needs to be in place after the 13th is over. Like, we need to know who's in power after the 13th if we don't have an interlocal agreement signed. And when I think about today is the 11th, and are we going to be able to have whatever in front of us to make a good decision by August 13th? My guess is that's not feasible. but I think October's too
Mhm.
long, especially given how much time they've already had. And so I'm wondering, when I look at our council meetings, you know, August 22nd is when we have to approve the budget. So I'm not super excited about putting anything else on that agenda day. And that's the first meeting after the 13th. I'm wondering if we can edit this resolution such that, you know, we stick with disposition of assets and keeping the current airport board, like just, you know, the disposition of assets called for in the interlocal agreement by August 13th is hereby stayed until the next meeting would be the 11th of September. And in my mind, that's 2 months from today. Was it the 12th? Did I pick the wrong one? Sorry, the 12th of December. That's 2 months and a day from today. There should be no reason, the city's already said they can get us the financials, there should be no reason why the county can't do the same thing. I mean, it says in here, they should be doing it by the 13th. Then we have a month.
Right.
To do what we need to do to pass.
Yeah. No objection to that.
So you're just changing the disposition of assets of August 13th to September 12th?
No, hereby stayed until
Stayed until
September,
Okay.
hereby stayed until September 12th.
Well, I think part of that too was to give city council time to get, when would you like us to get together and discuss?
Well, I mean, by the termination date, we've already said everyone needs to, like, everything in here is already stated. All information necessary for, to develop a new proposed airport interlocal agreement should be to us by August 13th. So in my mind, if, you know, once we get all that on August 13th, then we can decide, the six of us, do we need to meet extra times before the 11th? And if so, then we'll make time to do that, or
Turn 22nd into a working session.
or turn the 22nd into a working session after we approve the budget. And stay here however long we need to
I mean,
stay
by
here.
that time with the budget, it should be, you know, we'll have looked at it.
We will have
several
looked at it
times.
lots of times, so it shouldn't be,
I mean,
take
it
up too
shouldn't
much
be-
time.
Shouldn't be
How,
that laborious or
Yeah.
take that long.
tell me again how September 12th is different from August 15th.
Because if the data isn't required to be in our hands until August 13th, then we don't have any time to evaluate it and decide, okay, right? That's why. If
It gives us a month.
it gives us a month
It
with
puts
the
us-
data
it gives
to
us a deadline.
come up with.
It just makes our
what we
deadline
would
shorter.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just means we're gonna get it done sooner. That's
Exactly.
fine.
I do have a question though for Dennison, because you mentioned this earlier. So say this gets passed and it's modified to whatever, I mean, it's October, September. Does the county have to then agree to that?
Mayors, members of the council, they would, absolutely. Because right now, I mean, everything, both parties have already agreed on how everything's gonna happen based upon the interlocal agreement. So when you change to that, which this would be a change, the county would also have to agree to that change.
So, yeah, that's neat.
So I know, so that's why I was okay with the October 13th date, because that would give us time to meet, come up with a plan, present it to counties, they could come back if they want changes, and we would have time to respond.
Courtney, I have a question for Dennison too, since Bridger is part of the interlocal, do they also have to agree?
Sorry, yes, Bridget would definitely also have to agree.
And what does this do? Does this have an effect on the lease of city property on Rodeo Road?
The hangers lease or the lease, the odd lease that they issued?
The odd lease that they issued.
The odd lease that they issued at some point, which should be cleared up. There's a lot of ways to clear it up. The city could do, just for example, once again, it's not a recommendation, but as an example, the city could issue like an MOU if they felt so inclined. There's a lot of ways the city could clean that up at some point in time. That does need to be addressed, because that is, there's a piece of paper from a governmental entity that purports to give some rights to a group of people, and that does need to be cleared up in the future.
If that were to be, it's my understanding that that's an invalid lease because it leases land that is not part of their agreement. And I would like that to be cleared up. We have events scheduled on that property. I would like that to be cleared up before we offer a resolution to Bridger and the commissioners.
You can, you could, you can, I mean, there are different issues, you can do one or the other. I mean, that's not a legal issue. The legal answer is 100%. At some point in time, it does need to be cleared up because there's a lot of, if everybody just forgot about it, in 10 years, somebody dug it up, there's a lot of legal issues that come about detriment to the city, a detriment to the airport board, problems even with the rodeo. It should be cleared up. There's a lot of ways of clearing it up. Whether that's cleared up as a contingent on them accepting that additional time, that's something that definitely could be proposed. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could look.
So any further discussion?
So would we need to move to put this on the agenda for the next council meeting?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the one thing will be is what date we want on that.
And if you're going to have a condition to deal with the rodeo road lease.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
I mean, it's up to you.
No, I think that would cloud I think they're two separate issues personally. I think the city, moving forward, whether or not, there's a legal question there that I don't feel that we can really address in this resolution. I think that that's something else that needs to be settled as another agreement with the rodeo.
And that can move forward or not, regardless of what we do with this resolution.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, the city absolutely could be reaching out to the rodeo association and saying, hey,
This is an issue between the existing board and the people to whom they lease the property, because that's city property. And I mean, you're giving them a gratuitous thing, extending the time and not expecting anything in return. And I just want council to be aware of that will continue to be an issue, and we do have an event scheduled there. And I don't think it's a good idea to leave all these loose ends dangling and not really ever taking care of the actual issue. So,
Well, whether or not it's included in the resolution, it's not a separate issue. That's what started this whole
it is, but I
was the illegal lease that the airport board did a legal lease to the rodeo association. That's what started this whole thing. The next 4 months or wherever we are on this, that's what started all of this.
So is the impact, just trying to understand the impact of this potential resolution that Terry put forward. So is the impact that if we move the date that the airport board continues in its authority past August 13th, that means that we are going to continue to allow that lease? I thought we were pursuing ending that lease period regardless.
When I feel like if we are extending.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it was terminated.
Yeah,
That's why the agreement was terminated.
Right.
Because that happened.
Well, and so this is just part, I guess what I'm getting at is this language is still within, it's not acknowledging, it's not reinstating the 2018 agreement. This language is coming out of, this is how we terminate. Right? So in my mind, the pursuit of the city to mitigate our liability regarding that illegal lease can and should move forward regardless of if we decide to extend the airport board being able to maintain its authority for 30 more days, very simply because we need somebody in the seat until we all agree on an interlocal agreement that we want to put forward to the county.
How would you like to deal with this then? Because you're the lead. Because, I just need to know that.
That's a
Is
good
it up to
Jonathan
us?
question.
Like, I don't think that's for us. I don't.
Well, I think
Yeah, we- yeah,
it could be a requirement of any further negotiation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Denison, do you have any words? So we can put it, you know, we can draft a fresh resolution, we can talk about it more next time, we can vote on it
I
next time.
think we need to
We're
vote
running
on
out
it.
of time, I think, and we can't vote on it tonight, right?
But we'll definitely vote on it.
No,
So I think that we could discuss between now and the next council
Mhm.
meeting, because it's 8, we're all tired. And there's also a member that is not here.
Yeah.
Right? So I think in between now and the next council meeting, we
come
could,
up with the date.
we could come up with a date, we could come up with whatever revisions or
Mhm.
that we want to make to this, and then present it in the next
Okay.
packet for action.
All right,
Good, we'll
for action,
For action, then, yeah.
for action next time, all right.
All right, and so, with no further ado,
Okay.
there's correspondence in
So
your packet.
we have a,
And
do we have to make a
sorry,
motion now
no,
to do that?
We'll put it on the.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever version we have, and we can amend it at the meeting if we need to, but we will
Okay.
schedule it for a vote.
Sounds like Terry wants to say something.
Yeah.
Terry?
So I want to move that we add to the next agenda for discussion, how we as the governing body can increase awareness and access for the public to information that's important to their understanding of city business, and such as a document that came across my desk that has been very useful, knowing that we're coming up for budget discussion, and it's the annual internal audit report. I think that, along with presentations like we had today, you know, they're not in the packet, agenda packet, but yet those are great things for people in the public to have access to. And right now, I don't believe we have a way for them to have access to that unless, I guess, they go out and FOIA it. So I'd like to add that to the next agenda to just talk about, as a council, how we can ensure or help the public and all of us be aware of some of the documentation that we may need to make these decisions that are so important for our community.
Yeah, I'll second that. I feel like, I mean, some of the information that we've received, like, the first time I see it is usually when I'm here. Like, I had no idea. Her presentation was amazing. You know, thank you for putting that together. I had no idea we were doing such presentations or what it was fully entailed, so it'd be really nice to have that information.
And that was everything there was? And was there something else? Because I would like to put a border around what you requested. Like, I hear you saying that you would like the audit provided. Lonnie, is the audit online?
Yeah, it's on the state website. Every town that is required to do an audit, it is required to be done through the state. It's on the state website. We have copies here if anybody wants them. I believe they are on the website as well.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is one of the things that I think I'm trying to concentrate on is making important information more readily available to people in our community. And if, you know, I'll just say you go out to the county website and all of their audits are in an area, so you can search on it and you can see all their audits and you can pull them up and look at them easily. I think, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even know that we did an audit every year, and that the letter was addressed to the mayor and the city council people, but I didn't know that.
It didn't matter
So,
auditors when they
with that?
It didn't matter auditors when they were here doing the audit.
I know, but I wasn't aware that they published that report and that it would be sent to the mayor and the city council members, because I never received it. So all I'm saying, I'm just trying to find ways that we can make sure that information is not only available to city council members, but available to the public to get them more engaged. Another example, which I brought up with, I think, almost everybody on the council, is, you know, when we look back at recycling, there was a presentation that was put in the agenda packet, but that's done on Thursday or Friday. By the time I presented it, there was a lot more content in there, but yet the only thing that was really available to the public to look at was the version that was just the slides. So what I'm saying is if there was some sort of mechanism we can put in place so that that information is put up on the website or whatever, so that people have access to it, I think more information is always a good thing.
And I'm happy, I try to put everything on everywhere, but, I don't know the end of what. I mean, I think we've had packets that were like inches thick. I guess if you could define, and then if you want to make a motion, it's been seconded, so we can vote on it and discuss it, but we would need parameters of exactly.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
All right, then. Would anybody else like to discuss this?
I do just have a question. How long does it usually take for the video recordings of the meetings to go on the website when we get time? There is a couple of the GoToMeetings has been screwing up with our YouTube uploading it. I don't know what the system, why it's not, but there are some that will not. We've tried and we have tried, and they will not upload to our website. So we try to get it done the week of meeting.
How long are they saved for? Are they saved for a year or?
Yeah, we have them, but the formatting will not. There are some, for some reason, GoToMeeting will not, and it only happens to some of them. It's not always. We're not IT. We try.
So Terry's made a motion and it was seconded, so roll call.
Yes. Daniel? Yes. Urban?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes.
All right, now, Terry, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I do have one more question now that you asked. So a point of information for Lonnie. So are the annual internal audit reports available to the public free of charge?
Right now, they're sick, so they are available online.
Okay, they're available online.
On
On the state one, is that what you're talking about, that website, but not on our website? Okay.
I thought they were on our website, but we can add them onto our website.
It would be great if you could, because like I said, it was just really easy to find them on some of the other places like the county. So if you could add that, I'd be really happy.
All right, no further ado, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.